So some program news with Delta, they have improved their calendar. They put up a disclaimer on the website essentially saying that they'd been lying about the stopover prices.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric, checking in from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam with AJ in Detroit, the Motor City. Today we're going to be talking about All Nippon Airlines. Japanese national carrier ANA just announced a major change to their frequent flyer program, shifting from a distance-based to region-based pricing system. So often these types of changes are the ones that we dread in the points and miles community. Airlines announce that they're enhancing their frequent flyer program, which usually means higher prices, more restrictive routing rules, or both.
Fortunately for this one, it is not all gloom and doom. There are going to be some major opportunities with ANA's new pricing. So today, we're going to take a little bit of time to walk you through the new pricing, reviewing what the current pricing is to help you guys decide to make your decision if you should use miles now or wait until these changes kick in, because there are opportunities on both sides of the coin.
Yep, and we're looking at implementation sometime in March next year. So you've got plenty of time to make those bookings. You can make bookings as far as I think about 330 days in advance. So you can still use the old chart to travel up until about this time next year. So you've got a ton of opportunity to pick and choose and decide which pricing works best for you. And we're going to jump into that in just a second. So let's jump into some news and updates. So first of all, I want to do a quick recap of all the 50,000 point offers out there. There's quite a few, and so I just want to run through these real quick. The Chase British Airways card is now at a 2,000 minimum spend in 90 days, and they've also just recently changed to waive the $95 annual fee. So that's a new thing. Still pretty much the same card product, so if you have it already, you can't get the bonus again, but it is a $50K offer for only 2,000 spend, and those points can be really valuable. We've also got a few that have been around for a while. Chase Inc. Plus Business Card, $95 fee is waived. That's 50,000 points. The City Business, also $95 fee waived. And the City Platinum Select, which is a personal card, all of those have the fee waived. A couple other ones that you're going to end up paying the fee on, but could be worth it in the right situation. The Mercedes-Benz Amex Platinum. So this is just a branded version of the American Express Platinum card, and it's got a $25 higher annual fee. It's a huge fee. It's $475, but there's quite a bit of value in holding the card. So depending on how often you travel, you're going to have $200 worth of airline credits that you can use on things like checked bag fees or change fees, things like that. And also if you buy gift cards, you can usually get those credited as well. You've also got access to Priority Pass lounges, a $100 credit for global entry, Delta clubs, and quite a few other nice perks that come along with the Amex Platinum. So it can be worth paying that $475 annual fee, especially because the $200 airline credit is per calendar year. So if you get that card before December 31st, then you're going to be able to use those airline credits now and then use them again in January. So you're actually getting $400 towards your preferred airline and pretty much wiping out the cost of that fee. And that card earns Amex points, obviously, which is one of the transfer partners of ANA. So if you're thinking about redeeming on ANA, that's a great opportunity to get a whole bunch of points that you can use right away. Next one is the Miles & More MasterCard. This is issued by Barclays. Miles & More is the program of Lufthansa and also Swiss Airlines. They're offering 20,000 points after the first purchase when you pay the $79 annual fee, which isn't waived, and an additional 30,000 points after spending $5,000 in 90 days. So the real advantages with this card is that those Lufthansa points are really good for booking United domestic first class, especially United flights out to Hawaii. Their award chart is a little bit cheaper than United's own chart. So if you've got these Miles & More points for Lufthansa, you can use them on United within the US, Or if you're looking for an aspirational award, you can use them to access Lufthansa's legendary first class product, which they tend to block to all of their Star Alliance partners except for a couple weeks out. So if you want to book a first class ticket far in advance, you got to have Lufthansa's miles.
So the final card we've got is the Southwest Rapid Rewards. That's $2K and 90 days, $99 annual fee, and the offer's at 50,000 points right now. This isn't the best offer, but it's pretty good depending on where you want to go. I actually just booked a flight with these miles down to Dominican Republic, and it was really cheap. It was like 26,000 miles for a round trip or something with pretty minimal taxes and fees. I think maybe $50 or $60. So some program news with Delta. They have improved their calendar. They put up a disclaimer on the website essentially saying that they'd been lying about the stopover prices. And so what this really means and what's changed is now they're showing low-level awards on partners instead of only showing you the Delta high-level, even when those other awards existed. And this actually, I mean, I dealt with this firsthand when I was looking to book a client a flight to Australia, and they're only showing obnoxious prices in miles. So this will be nice to revisit and check out. And this is also good for Virgin Australia. Speak of the devil with me booking that client a flight to Australia.
Yeah, one of the only ways to get around those really high fuel surcharges on Virgin Australia is booking through Delta. The Delta Sky Miles program shields you from those fuel surcharges. So definitely check that out. You still shouldn't completely trust the website. It's still not pricing stopovers correctly. So if you do want to do a stop, you got to call Delta to book those tickets. But know that now the website is dramatically improved with the way that you can search for awards. You're going to see more partner space, and hopefully that'll help you use those Sky Miles for more valuable tickets.
Yeah, and some good news for folks looking to book on U.S. Airways or American Airlines. They are selling miles for 1.88 cents each per mile through November 30th. So this is really good if you need to top up your account to get enough miles to book that trip. And even for people really like set on buying a ticket in business class, go ahead and price out how many miles the trip is going to be and look up how much it would be to buy those miles, because we've actually had the opportunity to buy just however many miles we needed for a business class trip and save like $2,000 on the ticket. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. I think maxing out the promotion is going to get you around 125,000 American or U.S. Airways miles. Right now you could buy either or possibly both, I think. And that comes out to about $2,300 if I recall. So you can check it out on either airline's website and price it out with the taxes. But there's a lot of business and first class itineraries that you can book with 125,000 points. And there's a lot of first class tickets especially, and quite a few business that are more expensive than that to buy cash. So if the availability is there, this could be a great opportunity, and it expires on November 30th. So you don't have too much time. Make your moves, do that award search and see if the space is there, and then go for it if it makes sense to save some money on a business class ticket.
Yeah, one final piece, Eric. Let's get into the free booze, man. Amex Small Business Saturday.
Yeah, so I actually did truly buy about $60 or $70 worth of booze at our local Grand Ledge liquor store, which happens to be a small business. And American Express every year in November has this promotion where they're trying to help people recognize small brick and mortar businesses. And so what you have to do is go to the American Express website and register your Amex cards. And right now, any purchase that you make with your card over $10, you get a $10 statement credit. So if you buy an $11 something, you're going to get $10 back, and you can do that 3 times per card. So each Amex card you have is worth $30, and you know, some of you probably have quite a few Amex cards out there, so this can really add up. All right, let's jump into the core content for today's show. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about why ANA is important. You've maybe never even heard of them. They're a Japanese airline, and so the reason that it matters for folks everywhere is that they have access to all regions of the world. They're a member of the Star Alliance, which means that you can use their miles to fly on more than 24 partner airlines. Just a couple of examples. In North America, you've got United Airlines and Air Canada. In Asia, there's Singapore, Thai, EVA, ANA itself, Air China, and Asiana. In South America, you've got Avianca based out of Colombia and Copa. And then in Europe, there's Swiss, Lufthansa, Austrian, TAP Portugal, Brussels, Aegean, Turkish, and LOT out of Poland. And last but not least, in New Zealand, you've got South African And last but not least, New Zealand Airlines flying out to Oceania, and South African Airlines, Ethiopian, and Egyptian Airlines in Africa. So there's a ton of good options just within the Star Alliance. And on top of that, they've got a bunch of non-alliance partners, including TAM in South America, Etihad, Guarda Indonesia, Hawaiian, Jet Airways, Philippine, and Virgin Atlantic. We're leaving out a few small ones, so we're going to post those in the show notes, which again are at abroaders.com/ANA.
Yeah, so ANA has one of the best search engines on the web for finding Star Alliance award space. There is a bit more of a learning curve than using United or Aeroplan sites, but it's much more accurate. So that's something that's a positive about ANA. As far as getting points, so you get credit flown with miles from a partner airline, and then you can transfer points from Amex membership rewards as well. So that's how you can get miles into ANA, and you can transfer times are around 48 hours for Amex. So just keep that in mind. If you need to book a flight now, you're doing it wrong. You need to plan a little bit. Give yourself 48 hours for that transfer to hit. And then transfer points from Starwood Preferred Guest. It's a decent deal because you can transfer 20K Starwood Preferred Guest and get 25,000 ANA miles. And that transfer time, though, can be up to a few weeks. So that's, off the top of your head, man, do you got any advice for the best approach with transferring when you've got, up to a few weeks for the miles to hit? That's a bit more risky.
It is a little bit more risky. There are a lot of valuable opportunities with this ANA program. So if some of the destinations sound attractive to you, it might be a time to just move some Starwood points to ANA. And, you definitely want to take a look at the availability first. But, if it doesn't work out and somebody gets the seat you were looking for, there's a good chance you're going to be able to use those points for really high value later down the line. So don't worry too much about it. But if you do have a flight that's very, very restrictive and you have the luxury of having both Amex points and Starwood points, then you can always transfer Amex and know that transfer time is going to be quite a bit faster than Starwood Preferred Guest.
All right, so just to give you guys a breakdown on the current chart for ANA and the rules, it's a distance-based chart with prices based on the total distance flown. You do get up to 3 stopovers on a round-trip ticket, so you get 4 stops, including the destination. You get 1 open jaw from the origin or destination, so cities within the same region. There are fuel surcharges, and there is no last-minute booking. So that's the current chart for ANA and the current rules.
Yep. And one quick differentiator, we're going to talk a little bit about this as we break down how they compare, but they're a distance-based chart that's different than British Airways because ANA adds up all the distance flown. So if you fly New York to LA to Tokyo and then back to New York, you just add up all those distances and then calculate the price. Whereas British Airways is going to calculate each flight individually and then add the prices together. So that does make a difference. And let's jump into the award chart a little bit and just kind of talk about how this compares to some of the other airlines. So, and by the way, we will have an ANA award chart in the show notes. We're going to run through some numbers here, but don't be scrambling to write it down. You can check it out on the website, abroaders.com/ANA. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of how the ANA's current chart compares to some of the other airlines. So the first bracket is anywhere from 0 to 2,000 miles. And keep in mind, this is round trip distance. So if you keep it under 2,000 miles, it's going to cost you 20,000 points in economy and 38,000 points in business. And so that can be a really good deal if you max that out and you get pretty close to 2,000 miles. But keep in mind that with direct flights, you're probably going to get a better deal with British Airways because up to 2,000 miles as a single segment is still 10,000. And if it's a little bit shorter, you may come out ahead with the British Airways. The other thing about ANA is you get lots of stops, right? AJ just mentioned that there were 3 stops plus your destination. So that's 4 total stops on a round trip. Whereas every time you stop with British Airways, you're going to have to pay a separate price for that ticket. So the short distance is okay, but it actually gets quite a bit better. Let's talk about the next bracket.
Yeah, so the next bracket is from 4,001 to 7,000 miles. So that's, East Coast to Europe. And that's 38,000 in economy, and that's 63,000 in business class. So, for example, Virgin Atlantic upper class, JFK to London Heathrow, Delta. Just to give you guys a comparison, Delta would cost $60K instead of $38K in coach, and $125K K instead of that 63K in business. But the thing that's important here is you do need to consider the fuel surcharges.
Yeah, so if you've got a little bit of cash on hand and maybe not quite so many miles, ANA can be an awesome deal there. You're saving a lot of frequent flyer points by booking with them, especially in business, but those fuel surcharges do add up. We're going to come back to the fuel at the end and give you just some basic examples so you know what to expect in terms of how much the total cost of fuel surcharges could be on these tickets. Moving on to the next bracket, that's 7,001 miles all the way up to 9,000 miles. And you can think of this is generally going to be a flight from North America on the West Coast over to Europe. And so in economy, ANA is 43,000, United is 60,000, and Aeroplan is 60,000 round trip. And then in business, ANA comes in at 68, and United comes in at 140,000, and Aeroplan comes in at 90. So again, huge savings.
Yeah, the next bracket is that 9,000 up to 11,000 miles. So this would be, something along the lines of the West Coast to Japan, San Francisco, LAX to Japan. So ANA, and we're only going to talk about business class here because that is a long-ass flight, and if you have the miles, you're going to most definitely want to be comfy. So ANA, that's 85K in business class compared to United, that would be 150K in business class. So that's 65,000 miles in savings right there. And then ANA would be 120K in first class, so we're still beating United's biz class. And United would be 220K on the partners, and that would put you anywhere from 65,000 to 100,000 points saved with ANA. So some pretty huge gaps there with ANA versus United, going from that 9,000 to 11,000 miles, which, like I said, would be West Coast to Japan.
The new ANA chart takes effect on April 12th, 2015. So you've got plenty of time to take advantage of big wins in the current award chart. Obviously, there are some huge wins already in comparison to the other currencies that we just went over, but we're going to get into some of the new prices that beat the competition and beat ANA's old chart as well. So a couple of key takeaways, just general reasons why this new award pricing is so good, is that unlike a lot of other airlines, ANA is grouping the Middle East and Africa together in one region, and they're also grouping Central and South America in one region. So a place as close as Costa Rica to the US is the same price as a place as far away as southern Chile or southern Argentina. And so that creates a lot of different opportunities. And also the USA and Mexico are considered the same region. So you don't have to fly from one zone to the other. It's basically the same as flying within the United States if you're flying to Mexico City or someplace like that.
Okay, so we kind of laid the groundwork for the current chart and how it's really good, but this should kind of show you guys how things with ANA are pretty much going from better to even better. So flights for the West Coast to Europe, let's say LAX to Berlin, for example, that's over 11,000 miles. With the current chart they're using right now, that would be 60,000 economy, 90,000 biz, 140,000 in first class. But the new zone chart, that's going to be 45,000 in economy, 72,000 in biz, and 110 in first class. So that is big time.
So you're saving 15, 18, and 30,000 miles respectively on those changes. That's a big deal. All right, so we've got a lot of people that are based in the USA, and so I want to do a quick breakdown by class of service, just to give you guys an idea of where the biggest wins are here. So South America is 40,000 points round trip, which is tied with American Airlines, but only if you do that off-peak pricing. So there's restrictions if you use American miles on what dates you can get that 20,000 each way to South America. And if you're already planning a round trip, it's great because you can do it with those stopovers as well. So 40,000 round trip to South America is an awesome deal. It's also 50,000 round trip to Japan. And then Australia, New Zealand is 65, and the Middle East is 60. All those numbers blow every other airline out of the water.
Yeah, and in business class, it's awesome as well. South America is only 68,000 in business class, which is a massive win because with American Airlines, United, or Delta, you're looking at almost always 100,000 minimum, probably more.
Before we sign off for today, I want to cover a few things that you should have in the back of your head as far as expectations for these fuel surcharges. So there are actually some bright spots, but a lot of these partner airlines are pretty ugly. So keep in mind a few general rules. There aren't fuel surcharges within North and South America. So if you're taking advantage of any of those flights from the US to South America or Central America or the Caribbean, you're going to see really minimal taxes and fuel surcharges. One of the better airlines is Air Canada. So for trans-Pacific, transatlantic, and domestic within Canada, you're only looking at $50 to $100 in taxes and fees, including the fuel. It gets worse when you're flying on ANA. So if you're flying across the Pacific, you're probably looking at around $500 to $800. With Lufthansa, you're looking at between $600 and even up to $1,000 for a transatlantic. Singapore is a little bit brighter. Across the Pacific, it can be as low as $350, but it does go up to $700. So in those cases, it's probably only going to make sense if you're doing a trip in business class.
Key takeaway is with business class, you can give it a go and still get huge value, but otherwise you're going to want to try to skip out on those fuel surcharges.
That's one thing that isn't changing about the chart. So, the pricing is based now on region instead of distance, but the fuel surcharges are there now, and they're going to continue to be there as far as we know. So hopefully you guys found this useful and can make a good educated decision about whether it makes sense to wait to book your trip until the chart changes on April 12th, or if you want to get it done now so that you can take advantage of that distance-based pricing with all the stopovers.
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to shoot an email to support@abroaders.com. We're always happy to chat with you. This week's International Jam comes from some alternative rockers from South Australia. The band is Atlas Genius. The track is not new. It was released in May of 2011, but it never really hit the mainstream in the US at least. So the track is Trojans by Atlas Genius.
Hey Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.